I want you to know you're doing yourself more harm than good, continuing to underestimate your contributions in the workplace. That whole I'm going to be humble, I'm not going to talk about what I do in all of the things because it's not a big deal, or I don't want to seem like I'm being too big, or I'm bragging, or whatever thing is that you want to do. That you believe you're doing or achieving with by not sharing what your contributions and achievements are in the workplace, outside of the workplace, if it directly relates to your job. You're doing yourself more harm than good. And today I'm going to talk to you in a very plain way about 3 ways that is harming your career, how it's harming you in your current position, and how it's harming you for your future positions and even into retirement, right? So, the things that I'm going to talk about today are all internal. I talked a lot about like what it looks like for career progression and being passed over for promotions and opportunities when you are not verbally marketing your experiences, your expertise, and things like that. But today I'm going to talk about how it harms you internally first before it ever reaches the external point. Okay. Hey, if you are new here, my name is Marthea Pitts. I'm known on the social work streets as the MSW coach, and I help social workers make the pivot from case management work to macro social work roles where they are working to do large scale systems change, be it on a state level, a national level, or international level. As of today, I've helped well over 180 social workers make the pivot to macro social work since I've officially been keeping count, and they are now working in different industries, organization types where they are scaling their impact and clearly have scaled their salaries, so much so that they are thriving inside and outside of work now. And so, if you're interested in learning more about my career coaching services, I encourage you to grab my free e-course, which is a wonderful place to start, which is down in the episode show notes in the description box. And click the link. It will take you to my website, macroandpaid.com. Click the second link, and it will give you access to the free e-course. I send you 5 days worth of lessons teaching you everything that there is to know at this point about macro social work careers, what it entails, salaries, types of organizations, industry types, things like that. I even give you job titles because I know y'all love a good job title. So that's the best first place to start to learn more about macro social work careers and how I could possibly support you in making your pivot from case management to macro level work, just using your case management experience in your MSW degree. All right. So I'm telling you now, you see, I'm not in professional attire. I'm just coming on here to talk to you today because this is an extension of a conversation that I was having with my coaching clients yesterday during our weekly Sunday group career coaching call for the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator. And I kind of carried that conversation last night into um my Instagram stories. If you're not connected with me there, you should most definitely be. I'm at the underscore MSW coach. If I'm not anywhere else on social media, at least once a day, I'm on Instagram, mainly in my stories. That's where it go down in the stories because I don't always have time to curate a beautiful post and post it on the Instagram feed. I'm over here creating change in the world. I don't have time for that all the time. So if I have something pressing, if I want to share a resource or share some type of information to help you in your journey, I usually will do it in the stories. That's a tip for you. Okay. All right. So let's talk about why you need to stop underestimating your contributions in the workplace. I made my quick notes, when she made notes, I got something that I really want to talk to you about. So as I said in my introduction, you're doing yourself more harm than good by trying to by underestimating it. And I love a good definition. I always tell the story that my use of definitions was always a thing, but it really like was magnified my time working in macro roles with executive level leaders, national leaders, and leading, being a part of large conversations. and people not being clear on what we're talking about. So as a like a lesson from that, I always enter into a conversation with a clear set on let us clearly define what we're talking about here so we can all be on the same page and not have to come back, a day later, an hour after the conversation has ended and then ask for clarification, right? So underestimate, when I looked up the definition right before I hit record, is defined based on just a general Google search as estimate, parentheses, something to be smaller or less important than it actually is. Okay. So an example in the using the word, they have grossly underestimated the extent of the problem. Another definition through the same Google search is regard, parentheses, someone as less capable than they really are. Right. And so I looked at the definition to make certain that I was using the right word for this conversation. And what I've been seeing as of late, like I really spent a lot of time trying to identify the root cause of what people are experiencing in their career by the time they find me, right? And so as of late, one of the root causes that I've identified is the sheer fact that you, just like many of my coaching clients, and people that don't work with me, people that engage with me through a workshop, a webinar, whatever it may be, it's a running theme where many of you, if not all of you, severely, grossly underestimate your contributions in the workplace, right? And what I mean by that is that you, because you're so good at what you do just naturally, right? Because you're just so good at what you do, you think that it is like meaningless. And I'll give another twist to that. Like, and this is something that I had to learn when I first started my business 5 years ago, was when I was getting a lot of business coaching and they were helping me through the ideation stage. And it's all around like, what skill do you have that you can monetize, right? I always knew that I was going to be an education consultant. I knew that in my call center days, a consultant, I knew that I was going to start a consulting business. However, when it came down time to actually actualize the business, and I was working with one of my business coaches who's actually a FAMU graduate, and she took us through these series of questions around like, what do people know you for? What do people come to you for currently? And all of these things. And the thing that I kept coming back to was people come to me for jobs, right? Um, and this is in your personal life, right? And so for the longest time, I tried to avoid that, mainly because I didn't want to really, I had done that in my career. And I didn't really necessarily want to do it in a business. I went into business thinking that it was going to be like what you see on the Instagram pages where you can have passive income and you should do what you love, right? Sometimes your business needs to be based on a skill that you have that can be monetized. So then you can start making money to have freedom to do the things that you're super, super passionate about, right? And so, like, that was the coaching, that was the angle of coaching that I was getting at that time. Fast forward now, I have a different little outlook on it, but that was the cornerstone of what my business was developed on. And so, when I was working with her, um she she would ask me these guiding questions, and again, every time we would go through it, I always would come back to the fact that people come to me for jobs. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. That's what I do, right? And so when I then began to actively like launch my services, market my services, and it got to the point of like creating content for my business on social media, primarily Instagram. I used to struggle really, really hard with creating content because in my mind, I felt like the things that I knew and had done in my career and in the careers of other people was general knowledge. I really did, until maybe like 2 years ago when I worked with another coach that really got me in a place of being comfortable with my voice, right? in the marketplace. But anyway, when I first started, I thought that it was just regular, right? I thought that everybody knew that when you have over 10 years of experience, your resume should be longer than one page. I thought that everybody knew that when you're trying to get out of one job, you don't highlight those types of job duties on your resume, so like to avoid getting pigeonholed to those roles. I thought that everybody did career plans for their career. I thought that was like common knowledge. I thought that everyone thought strategically about their career, right? And it wasn't until I was out in the marketplace, and again, really also paying attention to the data I was collecting once I was in the marketplace, and as far as people's responses when they would work with me, and then even reflecting back on my time working in a federal workforce development center, and the fact that I won 2 statewide awards, 2 national awards for the job placements I was getting. I started really closely looking at the data because another business coach that I had at that time, she really led with that. Always look at your data. Always look at your data. And when I started looking back at my data, that's when I realized like what I do is not common. What I do is not like run of the mill, especially once I started meeting more and more social workers around the world who were struggling in their careers, who had been in the same very entry level roles since they graduated with their degree. And now fast forward, it's 10, 15 years later, and they're still on the same level. And I realized like me fast tracking my career was not normal, right? And so in me getting that coaching, really looking at my data, also pairing it with the coaching of other coaches, I got more comfortable with the fact that my stuff ain't average. My stuff ain't average. My stuff ain't running the mill, and that I really need to own that, right? And the more I begin to own it and accept it and like lead with the fact that ain't nobody better than me when it comes to like getting the types of jobs that I get. It just ain't. Like you could try to duplicate, right? And when I say ain't nobody better than me, I'm sure there is people better than me, but it ain't done in my style, it's not done in my approach, it's not done from the angle that I do it, right? And so when I say nobody's better than me, nobody's better than me in doing it the way that I do it, right? The fact that I can blend what you love outside of work into your career, to start increasing your job satisfaction rates. The fact that I can take people from a completely unrelated industry field type of role to the role they always wanted and thought they needed 10 degrees for, and do it all with no additional degrees, no additional experiences, right? I can align people with the passion, mission field careers, and not just take whatever the hottest, greatest thing is floating around in the job market streets. I'm good at it, right? And I had to own that. And I'm working on owning it every day. And so I tell you all that to say this, right? The longer you avoid like really giving yourself credit for being that one, like for doing the thing that you do the way that you do it, you're harming yourself, right? You're sending silent messages to your subconscious, right? That will impact you, be it now or in the immediate future and in the long-term future in your career. And so I have 3 ways that I've written down, and we're going to talk about them. So the first way is that when you underestimate your contributions in the workplace, right? When you don't feel like you're a big deal, when you feel like, oh, everybody does this, that's not great. Even when the people external to you are ranting and raving about it being a big thing, you are slowly diminishing your own self-confidence, right? This is why I meet so many social workers who I'm like, and then once I start working with them, I'm like, you can do this. Or even if I'm just talking to them in general, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see you doing blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, I can't do that. Or even if you don't ever come to talk to me, You can tell that your self-confidence has been diminished when you look at a job on a job board and you start reading it and then you like get excited, like, oh, this is great. I like this. And then you get down to the requirements section, or you maybe like keep reading down and you're like, oh no, I can't do that. Another way your diminished self-confidence shows up is when you even see a large sounding job title on a job board. You don't even click in it to check it out. Or if you see a large salary that's over and beyond what you historically like have made in the past, you don't even click it open to look at it. You just automatically like eliminate yourself from even considering the job. That's a sign that your self-confidence has been diminished. And as a direct, it's one of, because there's many other ways that your self-confidence can be diminished. Let me be clear on that. But one of the primary ways that I see that being done by you, is that you are not giving yourself credit. You are not accepting, like, you are not sitting in the fact that you are good at what you do. When people come up to you in your organization and say, job well done, you're like, oh no, that was me and my team. Or, oh no, that really wasn't a big deal. Like you, and I'm saying all this because I used to be this person. That's the other thing that makes me good at what I do. Nothing I'm talking about is from something that I read in a textbook. Nothing that I talk about is nothing that I've stolen or taken from someone else. It's all out of my own experience, right? So I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to the old me, right? So you are diminishing your self-confidence, which will down the line, and it's already impacting you, right? If you're still sitting in a job that you hate and you really dream of doing X, or if you had a dream job in mind when you went and got your MSW degree, but then you started looking at the jobs and you totally abandoned that dream, your self-confidence is already impacted. It's already impacted. And so I'm going to tell you also at the end of this how to start increasing your self-confidence. Let me write that down because I wanted my original notes. I gotta watch my time. I got a meeting with one of my coaching clients for office hours. Hold on, y'all. I done hit something on the on the keyboard. The second way is that you devalue your worth in the job market. When you continue to underestimate your contributions, the things that you do, and start relegating them to like not being a big deal, what you're also doing is like you're limiting your ability to effectively evaluate or gauge, assess, I don't know what word you want to use, your worth in the job market. When I'm just going to make this up based on one of my coaching clients, she placed 40 people 1 month in permanent housing in a region in the country where housing is a chronic issue. Like the house's population is super, super high, right? So she was walking around here thinking like, oh, yeah, 40 people. Yeah, the people making a big deal, but it's not really anything. How that was showing up in her job search prior to working with me, because I always ask them like, what types of jobs are you applying to previously? What do they look like? Maybe pull them up, let me look at it. She lives in a state where the cost of living is extremely high. You should be making minimum 150,000 a year to even like break even to what would be maybe be like 50,000 in another state, right? So when she pulls up the job for me, the job barely paid like 60,000. I think the max was 70,000. So I use that as an example because her underestimating her contribution and over the years, because she had been in that role for years, over 10 plus years, her over time saying that it wasn't a big deal, skewed her ability to understand how much her contributions really are worth in the job market. If you work in a region where the chronically houseless is extremely high and housing is a hot button issue in your region, which it is in her city, you are doing the impossible day in and day out, month after month, year after year. You've been in that role for 10 plus years. Your value in the job market is high because you have found the solution. You have mastered, you have created the solution to the problem. So your demand is a supply and demand situation. If the demand is we got to figure out how to house these people, and you have figured it out so much so that other counties call you in to support, to get to like pick your brain on how to fix this issue in their city, your value is higher than 70,000. Your value is at really around 250,000, right? However, because she was the years prior, the months prior, the weeks prior, she was underestimating her contributions in the workplace. She has no idea what her experience is worth in the job market. I'm looking at my phone because I'm trying to track this time. Okay. The third way is that it makes you feel like everyone else when you're not, right? And so what I meant by that is when you underestimate your contributions, you start thinking you regular. You start thinking you like everybody else. You start walking around talking about imposter syndrome. Y'all know how I feel about imposter syndrome. I feel like it has oppressive roots to it. I don't prescribe to it. I'm not trying to negate what you feel, but a lot of what I've seen in my work of working with social workers, working with mission-driven professionals is you feel like you like everybody else because you feel like what you do ain't a big deal because you have grossly underestimated your contributions. You haven't given yourself proper credit for the things that you do, right? We all know as social workers, as frontline workers, I know back in the day when I used to be on the front lines, every day you on the front lines, you making the impossible happen. You pulling money out the sky when it ain't no money. You're getting resources available. My coaching client that I just talked about, she's finding housing for 50 people a month when there's no housing, when there's no housing supply. How is she doing that? Right? So what she's doing is most definitely like not like everyone else. She told me a story the other week about how people would start sending her their cases and she would get the people placed. And one of the people that she did that for won a regional award for her housing placements for her caseload. And she was like, I did it though, right? Yeah, you did it, but you didn't tell nobody. You did it and you thought it wasn't a big deal. The other person knew it was a big deal and they capitalized on that and they got the recognition that you were supposed to get. Right. And I'm sure, and it came, and I was like, I'm sure it came with a raise or a promotion. She was like, it did. Right. So these are the things you think that what you do is regular. And so I'm going to talk about like how you can course correct yourself really, really quickly. The first is that when you've done this for so long, your ability to identify like when you're doing it won't be there. So you got to retrain yourself. So the first thing is start paying attention to what, and I didn't write this down, so roll with it, replay it back if you need to, stop it, pause it, take some notes. The first one is start paying attention to what people are telling you. What I always say is, because this is true for me in my case management days, people see the greatness in you before you ever see it in yourself. Especially if you come from a place where you have always like put yourself second to everybody else, all of their things, all of what they got going on, all of the things, right? Which is many of us as social workers. That's why we became helping professionals. So the first thing is start paying attention to what the people are telling you. And I always say this, if I always tell my coaching clients this to prepare them for an interview. I said, if I ever made a big deal about it and I went on and on and on and on about the thing and how great it was that you did that, that's what you need to talk about in the interview. Right. And I've had several coaching clients come in, they were like, if you ever go blank, if I went on and on and on about the thing, that's something you need to talk about. And I've had several coaching clients land their macro jobs and they come back after the interview and they're like, I went blank towards the end. But all I could remember was that Marthias went on and on about it, talk about it. And it was like, they love the response. I say the same thing to you. If the people around you go on and on and on about how great that was, how great the idea was, that was a great turnout, great add to the conversation, that's what you need to pay attention to. That is telling you that that thing, the running theme and those things is a big deal. And I want you to start like moving from underestimating it as, oh, it don't really matter to, yeah, this is something, because I'm always being recognized for it and leaning into that. The second way, and again, I didn't write this down, of how you start underestimating your contributions is I want you to start telling yourself internally that it's okay to be big. It's okay to be big. It's okay to be big. It's okay to have desires to be in bigger spaces. It's okay to abandon what you thought you wanted for what you really, really wanted, right? Or let me rephrase that. It's okay to abandon the things that you settled for to go after what you really, really want, right? And then the third thing that I'll add on to like that second one is understanding that in order to make this shift, it's going to require an internal change in you. It's going to require internal change in you. All of these were internal things. It's going to require it's going to require reframing your mindset. And you know, I ain't clinical. I ain't clinical. Ain't no, I'm not clinical. But I'm talking from real world perspectives. It's going to require you to have a shift in your mindset, a shift, a reframing your mindset. A lot of you, and I'm gonna be generalistic right now in this statement. A lot of you are are really tainted by your not so great work experiences and in micro settings, right? And it shows up. It shows up because I think a lot of people walk around with unaddressed burnout, and a byproduct of burnout is pessimism, right? Being very pessimistic. So with that, I see a lot of social workers instead of being open to new opportunities, open to new ways of thinking, open to whatever, they immediately are very dismissive of it. And I believe that's a byproduct of unaddressed burnout that you need to deal with. And so I maybe have kind of jumped away from number three, but it's still dealing with internal. You got to start with yourself. You got to work on your ability to have a growth mindset. I know as social workers, we talk to our participants. Well, I'm not in direct practice no more. I haven't been there in a long time, but I know as when I used to be on the front lines, you talk to your participants a lot about having a growth mindset and a limited mindset. I need you to start applying that to yourself. I need you to start applying that to yourself. I need you to start being your own client, right? What I've heard from social workers over the years is that they're really good at telling other people what they need to do, but then are bad with doing it themselves. I need you to start doing whatever you talk to your people about all the time around reframing their mindset and looking at things from a strength-based approach, whatever your thing is, insert your thing, especially my clinical social workers. I need you to start doing that for yourself, right? So you can be open to these conversations, open to when people are telling you it's a big deal. And like, instead of thinking like, well, what does that mean? Are you going to come from a negative angle with it? Blah, 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 blah. What do you want? Right? I need you to start being open. And that starts with a mindset reframe, coming from a growth mindset place. It may mean that you need to go sit down somewhere and go address your burnout. I always shout out the burnout expert VG Michelle on Instagram. Go check her out. I always say go get whatever she got. You need to sign up for it. So you need to stop underestimating your contributions in the workplace because it is doing you more harm than good. And it starts internally, right? It starts internally. Well, this conversation today is focused on the internal ways that how it shows up, what it looks like, how it starts, rather. In other videos, I talk about the external factors that cause you to underestimate your contributions. But I really wanted to shift the conversation today because a lot of people, when they find me, they think that is the employer. They think that is a social work profession. And then once we start working and really doing the work, it was you all along. That's how you even got wrapped up in that job, right? Because you underestimated your value in the workplace and you went and settled. Ooh, I gotta go. It's 4:15 on the East Coast. It's time for me to log in. Grab the e-course in the comments. Leave a comment, a reflection, a key takeaway under this video. Let me know what you thought about differently from this conversation. Help me help you. Happy macro career planning. Bye.